Morning, everyone. Today is Sunday, the 3rd of July, and right now it's like 10:25 right now. It's 10:24. I didn't want to get up because I just sat down, but anyway, right now, today we're going to go over chapter 16 of our lovely book, The Master Key System by Charles F. Haanel. Last week we went over chapter 15, and we're going to go over a little bit of a review on what we gained from the last chapter we went over. In chapter 15, we learned about parasites, that these parasites, it was an experiment by Jacques Locke, and Jacques Locke, he had parasites and he had plants. He put the plants next to the window, and they didn't water the plants. They let the plants die, and eventually these parasites found out that, hey, these plants are dead. Like, if we stay here, then we're not going to live, And basically these parasites, they metamorphosized. They grew temporary wings, and then they flew out of the plant and made it to the window. And they did that because if they didn't, they would have died. And basically the whole thing about this experiment was to show that any living thing can take hold of natural law, that we are all one with this cosmic being, and whenever the need arises, we're given the things necessary for us to stay alive, because these things just grew wings, and now they're still alive, which I thought was pretty amazing. And basically the whole thing about chapter 15 was growth, and that the entire universe itself is set upon our growth, no matter what. That any obstacles that we come across is there for further growth, so we could become stronger and do other things, so we could be able to take on more responsibility. There are things in which we have outgrown, but yet we still permit ourselves to take the actions of doing that. Okay, that is one thing that is helping us for our growth until we develop. Okay, and we're going to go over another thing a faculty of the mind that we learned about called insight, and we're going to talk about that before we get started on this. But he basically said it's going to keep happening until you develop the insight and ways and means to go another path, or to when you finally decide, what, I'm not going to keep doing this because it's not helping me grow anymore. And the only things that are going to help me grow is if I let this one go, so something else could come into my life that's going to keep me growing even further and further. Basically, the whole thing with that is that all things are set around our growth, regardless if we're still doing something that's not helping us grow. What is it? What is this word I'm looking for? The things that happen to you, I guess, from doing those things as you move along in life, are showing that, hey, this is no longer here to serve you, moving on from that, we also learn more about the power of the word, that it is the power of the word that makes that's one huge thing that separates man from any other animal, because having the power of the word we have been able to leave books behind. We have been able to communicate with each other. We have been able to, talk to each other in different ways than any other animal or creature on this planet can. And another quote that I also want to say by Jesus the Messiah is that man shall not eat by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from his mouth. Remember the power of the word. Every time you speak, okay, you're using your Visuddha chakra, your throat, you're creating those vibrations, and those vibrations are being traveled along the ether through the law of by the law of vibration. And remember how we'd gone over ether and strain and matter and motion, that when we speak, we are literally releasing electromagnetic energy, okay? And this electromagnetic energy is literally changing the atoms of this area that's right here in front of me, you know, and the atoms take on that, and then you are able to hear what I am saying in the form of sound. And because that sound has a certain symbol attached to it, you are able to take that symbol and understand exactly the message that I'm trying to get across. And that's one thing with the power of the word. And he also said it is through the ages that all the accumulated knowledge that we have gained was simply the universal consciousness expressing itself through each and every single man. And now we have come to the point where everything is finally being connected together, and to where we're actually on the verge of, you know, I don't know, maybe a new world order. If people actually, when the majority of people actually learn this information, actually learn this about themselves, imagine the type of world we would live in. Like, yeah, things would be a lot different. And moving on from the power of the word, he starts going into insight. Okay, insight, the faculty of the mind, is a power of the mind. Okay, insight is a power that we have. Okay, insight, he was saying, is like a human telescope. Okay, insight allows us to see something if it's going to benefit us or not. Okay, like we see a thought and we're able to see if that thought is going to help us at all in the long run. You know, like, remember, we become what we think about most of the time. Whatever thought forms we habitually hold are the thought forms that take root within our own mind, and then we become that character expressing it in the outer world. Okay, so insight will help us develop, okay, if I hold on to this thought long enough, what's going to happen with me, you know, like, or if I hold on to this idea and try to keep going for it, what might happen from it? You know, that's what insight is, our ability to see something, if it's going to be good for us or not. And when we develop this faculty, we would be also able to discern any situations that may arise before it actually happens, okay, allowing us to dictate what we need to do so we could keep it from being a destructive type of situation, so we could keep our you know, so we could keep ourselves on top, I guess you could say, and we wouldn't have to have anything that's not harmonious, you know. And that's basically the whole ins and outs of chapter 15, what we had learned. And right now we're going to go over chapter 16, which we are very, very excited about, because honestly, you guys, I should have been done with this book already. And I had gotten halfway through the book, and then I stopped. And I stopped for like the amount of time I should have finished it. And yeah, just about last week when I started with chapter 15 again, you know, I still have time to finish this year. I still have time to finish this year, which is my goal, because we remember that when we set ourselves to do something, we need to finish it. We need to finish it regardless of the consequences. So, part 16, Introduction. The vibratory activities of the planetary universe are governed by a law of periodicity. Everything that lives have periods of growth, Everything that lives have periods of birth, growth, fruitage, and decline. These periods are governed by the septimal law. The law of sevens governs the days of the week, the phases of the moon, the harmonies of sound, light, heat, electricity, magnetism, atomic structure. It governs the life of individuals and of nations, and it dominates the activities of the commercial world. Life is growth, and growth is change. Each 7-year period takes us into a new cycle. The first 7 years is the period of infancy. The next 7, the period of childhood, representing the beginning of individual responsibility. The next 7 represents the period of adolescence. The 4th period marks the attainment of full growth. The fifth period is the constructive period, when men begin to acquire property, possessions, a home, and family. The next, from 35 to 42, is a period of reactions and changes, and this in turn is followed by a period of reconstruction, adjustment, and recuperation. so as to be ready for a new cycle of sevens beginning with the 50th year. Those familiar with these cycles will not be disturbed when things seem to go wrong, but can apply the principles outlined in these lessons with the full assurance that a higher law will invariably control all other laws, and that through an understanding of conscious operation of spiritual laws, we can convert every seeming difficulty into a blessing. Wow. Law of periodicity. Septimal laws. It makes you wonder that, I don't know, I guess just recently when I stopped, was I going through a period like this? Part 16, that was the end of the introduction. Wealth is a product of labor. Capital is an effect, not a cause, a servant, not a master, a means, not an end. The most commonly accepted definition of wealth is that it consists in all useful and agreeable things which possess exchange value. It is this exchange value which is the predominant characteristic of wealth. When we consider the small addition made by wealth to the happiness of the possessor, we find that the true value consists not in its utility, but in its exchange. This exchange value makes it a medium for securing the things of real value, whereby our ideals may be realized. Wealth should then never be desired as an end, but simply as a means of accomplishing an end. Success is contingent upon a higher ideal than the mere accumulation of riches, and he who aspires to such success must formulate an ideal for which he is willing to strive. Now there is one thing I want to attach to that statement when we read our lovely book, The Instant Millionaire. Okay, success is contingent upon a higher ideal. It is an ideal. It is ideas that people make money of. It is idea that people accumulate their riches off of. And it is the idea that they go after. It's not the money. It's not the riches. It's the fact that they love what they're doing. It's their passion. They go every day just doing it. And, you know, they don't ask for anything back. You know, they do what they do because they love to do it. And they love to do it so much that they do it better than everyone else. You know, because it's when you do what you love, you're the best at it because you're doing your best at it. You know, it's one of those things you don't really have to try. You just do it. You know, and things come to you for doing it. Remember, wealth should never be desired as an end, but simply as a means of accomplishing an end. Riches come to those who accomplish their goals. Prentice Mulford said, quote, "The man of success is the man possessed of the greatest spiritual understanding, and every great fortune comes of superior and truly spiritual power." Adding on to that too is a quote by the ancients. You must be before you can have. To be something is to have something. Remember those dreams and goals that you have? The person you are today is not going to be able to make that happen, okay? You need to grow into that person. Remember, success is an unfoldment, okay? Like Earl Nightingale is saying, okay? It is a continuous advancement towards a worthy ideal. A continuous advancement and unfoldment towards a worthy ideal. Unfortunately, there are those who fail to recognize this power. They forget that Andrew Carnegie's mother had to help support the family when they came to America. That Harriman's father was a poor clergyman with a salary of only $200 a year. That Sir Thomas Lipton started with only 25 cents. These men had no other power to depend upon, but it did not fail them. Now remember, in the emergency, the need that we need, the universal law is there for us when we need it the most. Remember those parasites that we were just talking about. The power to create depends entirely upon spiritual power. There are 3 steps. idealization, visualization, and materialization. Now remember, idealization and visualization are all products of your imagination. Okay, that is why your imagination is so important. Okay, materialization is the last part, the forming part of visualization and idealization. Every captain of industry depends upon this power exclusively. In an article in Everybody's Magazine, Henry M. Flagler, the Standard Oil multimillionaire, admitted that the secret of his success was his power to see a thing in its own completeness. The following conversation with the reporter shows his power of idealization, concentration, and visualization, all spiritual powers. Quote, "Did you actually vision to yourself the whole thing? I mean, did you or could you really close your eyes and see the tracks and the trains running and hear the whistles blowing? Did you go as far as that?" End quote. Quote, "Yes," end quote. Quote, "How clearly?" End quote. Quote, "Very clearly," end quote. Here we have a vision of the law. We see, quote, "cause and effect," end quote. We see that thought necessarily precedes and determines actions. If we are wise, we shall come into a realization of a tremendous fact, that no arbitrary condition can exist for a moment, and that human experience is the result of an orderly and harmonious sequence. The successful businessman is more often than not an idealist, and is ever striving for higher and higher standards. The subtle forces of thought, as they crystallize in our daily moods, are what constitutes life. Thought is the plastic material with which we build images of our growing conception of life. Use determines its existence. As in all other things, our ability to recognize it and use it properly is a necessary condition for attainment. Premature wealth is but a forerunner of humiliation and disaster, because we cannot permanently retain anything which we do not merit or which we have not earned. We cannot retain anything that we have not earned. We cannot retain anything which we aren't grown enough to retain and maintain. Remember, responsibilities, okay? The more we are able to take on the responsibilities we have and take them on in smaller ways, more and more larger things will come to us for us to be able to take care of them, because we have that responsibility. We have the growth within us. The character in which we are is able to maintain that situation. The conditions with which we meet in the world without correspond to the conditions which we find in the world within. This is brought about by the law of attraction. How then shall we determine what is to enter into the world within? Now remember the mind, the conscious and subconscious part, okay? The conscious part of your mind is the watchman at the gate. The subconscious does not reason. It only accepts everything we give it. So whatever we permit and let into our conscious mind is accepted by our subconscious, okay? And that's how those thoughts take root. Remember, we have the power to choose what things will affect us and which things won't. Whatever enters the mind through the senses or the objective mind will impress the mind and result in a mental image, which will become a pattern for the creative energies. These experiences are largely the result of environment, chance, past thinking, and other forms of negative thought, and must be subjected to careful analysis before being entertained. On the other hand, we can form our own mental images through our own interior processes of thought, regardless of the thoughts of others, regardless of exterior conditions, regardless of environment of every kind, and it is by the exercise of this power that we can control our own destiny, body, mind, and soul. Now remember the use of the will, okay? It is the power of the will that allows us to entertain only thoughts which we want to stay in congruence with. Okay, remember, everyone shares a thought atmosphere. I know for a fact you've been with somebody and you said something and they were saying, "Hey, I was thinking the same thing." It's because you two are sharing a thought atmosphere, okay? Even if we're not physically speaking, we're still communicating with each other with our mind. Yes, we have that power. Therefore, to control thought is to control circumstances, conditions, environment, and destiny. How then are we to control thought? What is the process? To think is to create a thought, but the result of the thought will depend upon its form, its quality, and its vitality. The form will depend upon the mental images from which it emanates. This will depend upon the depth of the impression, the predominance of the idea, the clarity of the vision, and boldness of the image. The quality depends upon its substance, and this depends upon the material for which the mind is composed. If this material has been woven from thoughts of vigor, strength, courage, determination, the thought will possess these qualities. And finally, the vitality depends upon the feeling with which the thought is impregnated. If the thought is constructive, it will possess vitality. It will have life. It will grow, develop, expand. It will be creative. It will attract to itself everything necessary for its complete development. If a thought is destructive, it will have within itself the germ of its own dissolution. It will die, but in the process of dying, it will bring sickness, disease, and every form of discord. This we call evil, and when we bring it upon ourselves, some of us are disposed to attribute our difficulties to a supreme being, but this supreme being is simply mind in equilibrium. It is neither good nor bad. It simply is. Remember, this thing simply is, and we are the manifestations and expressions of this being that simply is. And it has given us the power to make our lives. We will either make our bed in hell, or we'll take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea. Whatever we choose, this supreme being will give to us, through us, as us. Our ability to differentiate it into form is our ability to manifest good or evil. Good and evil, therefore, are not entities. They are simply words which we use to indicate the result of our actions, and these actions are in turn predetermined by the character of our thought. If our thought is constructive and harmonious, we manifest good. If it is destructive and discordant, we manifest evil. If you desire to visualize a different environment, the process is simply to hold the ideal in mind until your vision has been made real. Give no thought to persons, places, or things. These have no place in the absolute. The environment you desire will contain everything necessary. The right persons and the right things will come at the right time and in the right place. It is sometimes not plain how character, ability, attainment, achievement, environment, and destiny can be controlled through the power of visualization, but this is an exact scientific fact. And I also want to throw in there with that, through the power of visualization. There is a book called what is it called? I was just listening to it the other day. I've already listened to it several times. It is by Genevieve Barron, and she talks about visualizing your inner power, the power within, oh my gosh, Your Invisible Power. That's what it's called. Your Invisible Power by Miss Genevieve Barron, and she goes deeply into the law of visualization. I encourage you to go check that out and listen to the book. She talks a lot about Judge Troward, the greatest mental scientist of his time, the law of visualization, and how, since we're all divine centers of God, within God, we all have the power of God. You know, we're all degrees, like he's saying, we're all embodiments of this one source, and the only difference between us and him is our degree of ability in which we have, okay? Because everything that we are still lies contingent upon this supreme being and everything that it is. And she basically goes into saying what the power of visualization is, how to use the law of visualization, how to use it constructively in your own life, and yeah, how it works. And yeah, like I said, go check it out. It's a really good book. You will readily see that what we think determines the quality of mind, and that the quality of mind in turn determines our ability and mental capacity. And you can readily understand that the improvement in our ability will naturally be followed by increase in attainment and a greater control of circumstances. It will thus be seen that natural laws work in a perfectly natural and harmonious manner. Everything seems to, quote, just happen, end quote. If you want any evidence of this fact, simply compare results of your efforts in your own life when your actions were prompted by higher ideas, and when you had selfish or ulterior motives in mind. You will need no further evidence if you wish to bring about the realization of any desire, Form a mental picture of the success in your mind by consciously visualizing your desire. In this way, you will be compelling success. You will be externalizing it in your life by scientific methods. We can only see what already exists in the objective world, but what we visualize already exists in the spiritual world. Now, if you guys are with us, we're also in the middle of our book, The Science of Being Great, and Wallace D. Wattles talks about thoughts and thinking, okay? And right here, Charles says, what we visualize already exists in the spiritual world, okay? Thoughts. Thoughts are real things. It is an actual element, a real intangible substance that exists in the atmosphere around you. Remember that mental atmosphere we were just talking about earlier. We are sharing our mental we are sharing a mental atmosphere. We are sharing each other's thoughts. Okay, we could communicate with each other without having to speak. Okay, because what we visualize already exists in the spiritual world. Okay, the spiritual world, and thought is a spiritual activity. Okay, and this visualization is a substantial token of what will one day appear in the objective world. If we are faithful to our ideal, remember faith, the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. When you enter into this substance with faith, okay, that's how you attract it, because you believe that it is coming. And if you don't believe that it's going to come, then it will never come. Remember the power of belief. You must believe in it. The reason for this is not difficult. The visualization is a form of imagination. This process of thinking forms impressions on the mind, and these impressions in turn form concepts and ideas and ideals, and they in turn are the plans from which the master architect will weave the future. I want to challenge you guys for a second, okay? Visualizing. If we visualize it and hold it steadily, it will appear in our lives in the objective world if we are faithful to it, okay? So, let's say, let's put this into experiment. Let's put this into practice, okay? Let's say a car. There's a car that you really want, okay? Think about the car. Visualize the car. Imagine the car, you know. Believe that car is on its way to you, okay? Next time you're out on the streets, this car is going to appear there. You will see it, okay? You might see it once, you might see it twice. You may even see it 3 times just before you get to the destination where you are heading. Put it into practice, okay? Test it out. Try it out. Test out the power of your mind, okay? You hear people say that when they believe that they're going to get a parking space when they go to the place that they're heading for, surely enough, right when they get there, a parking space opens up for them. It's happened to me before. Try it out. You would be amazed at the things that you can do. The psychologists have come to the conclusion that there is but one sense, the sense of feeling, and that all other senses are but modifications of this one sense. This being true, remember, the heart. Feeling comes from the heart. The heart is the master organ of the body. It produces magnetic waves 500 times stronger than the brain, and electrical waves, I believe it was 100 times stronger than the brain. I need to go look that up again just to make sure, because it has been a while. Because why I even started this videos is because you gotta follow your heart. Because when you follow your heart, you never lose. Okay, let's continue. All other senses are but modifications of this one sense. This being true, we know why feeling is the very fountainhead of power, why the emotions so easily overcome the intellect, and why we must put feeling into our thoughts if we wish results. Thought and feeling is the irresistible combination. Remember, electromagnetism. Thought is the form of electricity, okay? Feeling is the form of magnetism, okay? Well, okay, I take that back. All of it is, okay? Electromagnetism. Every cell in your body releases electromagnetic waves. But thinking produces, what is this word? Not stationary, not static, dynamic, more dynamic type. When you're thinking, it produces like dynamic type waves, okay, waves that aren't still, okay, waves that come and go. When you're thinking, you're producing waves that come and go. I learned this from Greg Braden about 3 years ago by watching his videos. And feeling, your heart, okay, when your brain, this is how he put it, okay, if the brain is the organ of the conscious mind, and your brain is what what is that word? Your brain is what collects the thought, what expresses the thought, okay? When you're thinking, you're expressing your thought through your brain, okay? So your brain produces waves that aren't stationary, they're not solid, okay? Feeling, your heart produces standing waves, waves that are solid, waves that make the atom come together and form the atom, okay? Standing waves are the thing that holds things together, okay? Alternating waves or waves that come and go are non-solid. They don't hold things together. They bring things into thought forms. They're responsible for visualizing, and when you add feeling and power to that vision, it becomes a standing wave, okay? It becomes a standing wave. It becomes something more physical, more tangible through feeling. Because remember, when we change a field that an atom is in, that atom itself changes, and we're made of those feelings. We have that field, and when we change our feelings, we are changing our own electromagnetic field, changing every single atom of our body and molecule that we ourselves are being made out of. Yeah, very interesting when you think about it. Now let's continue. Visualization must, of course, be directed by the will. We are to visualize exactly what we want. We must be careful not to let the imagination run riot. Imagination is a good servant, but a poor master, and unless it is controlled, it may easily lead us into all kinds of speculations and conclusions which have no basis or foundation of fact whatever. Every kind of plausible opinion is liable to be accepted without any analytical examination, and the inevitable result in mental chaos. I also want to add on to that, the imagination will be a good servant or a poor master, okay, because unless you can control over your imagination, okay, that is the power of our mind. That is one thing that shows that even though our mind and our body is connected, it still has its own separations, okay, because if you don't have control over your imagination, and your imagination is a product of your mind, then it can be a poor master, because you can imagine situations in certain ways as they don't need be. Okay, like people who are fearful of something, they're manifesting that fear, and they're imagining fear upon them, and how I can't remember who said it, but it was in the Bible. The thing I fear has come upon me. Okay, remember, when we are constantly visualizing on the thing, it comes into our life. Okay, it comes to pass. We bring it to us. We attract it to us. That is why they are saying we always need to focus on the things we want. So we only bring the things we want to us, and not the things that we don't want. And that is why it's very, very important that we all learn how to also move with the external world, okay, society, the way society is placed, the way this system is that we all have to live with, okay, like the system that the entire world has in place so things stay in order, you know, quote unquote, in order. We need to learn how to use our imagination in congruence with what's happening outside of us, because we have the ability to imagine something that, you know, that isn't there. You know, and that imagination will make it there. So, that's, I don't know, I guess it goes both ways, because if people actually use the power, you know, like we were going over earlier, when the majority of the world learns about their own powers and are using it for constructive purposes, the entire world is going to change anyway. But as of right now, for the people who but then you think about it, it's like, are we even barred down by society because we have these powers? You know, like if we have the ability to manifest these things towards us, does it even matter how society is? Will we still be able to overcome that with the power of the Supreme Being? I mean, I don't see why not, right? But even if we do that, there's still that system which we have to abide by in the material world. And oh man, it's just a big mess, you guys. just some food for thought. I'll let you guys continue in on that and your opinions on it, and feel free to comment and leave me below. Let me know what you guys think on what you think about it. Yeah, let's continue this. Okay. Where were we? Okay, we're on 35. We must therefore construct only such mental images as are known to be scientifically true. Subject every idea to a searching analysis and accept nothing which is not scientifically exact. When you do this, you will attempt nothing but what you know you can carry out, and success will crown your efforts. This is what businessmen call far-sightedness. It is much the same as insight, and is one of the great secrets of success in all important undertakings. For your exercise this week, try to bring yourself to a realization of the important fact that harmony and happiness are states of consciousness, and do not depend upon the possession of things, that things are effects and come as a consequence of correct mental states. So that if we desire material possessions of any kind, our chief concern should be to acquire the mental attitude which will bring about the result desired. This mental attitude is brought about by a realization of our spiritual nature and our unity with the universal mind, which is the substance of all things. This realization will bring about everything which is necessary for our complete enjoyment. This is scientific or correct thinking. When we succeed in bringing about this mental attitude, it is comparatively easy to realize our desire as an already accomplished fact. When we can do this, we shall have found the, quote, truth, end quote, which makes us, quote, free, end quote, from every lack or limitation of any kind. Now here he ends with a quote by H.W. Beecher, and he says, quote, a man might frame and let loose a star to roll in its orbit, and yet not have done the memorable thing before God as he who lets a golden orbed thought to roll through the generations of time, end quote. Now that is the end of part 16, and regardless of society, we are one with the Supreme Being. And yeah, even if it's a system, we have the power to overcome that system, because it is a natural law that we become what we think about, and we can attract those things we desire into our lives if we believe and have faith and feel and know that it is coming. Like I said, put that experiment into practice, and you may be surprised at the results. Now, questions and answers for part 16. Question 1. Upon what does wealth depend? Upon an understanding of the creative nature of thought. 2. Upon what does its true value consist? Upon its exchange value. Upon what does success depend? Upon spiritual power. 4. Upon what does this power depend? Upon use. Use determines its existence. Remember, you must do the thing to have the power. Emerson, excuse me. 5. How may we take our fate out of the hands of chance? By consciously realizing that conditions which we desire to see manifested in our lives. 6. What then is the great business of life? Thinking. 7. Why is this so? Because thought is spiritual and therefore creative. To consciously control thought is therefore to control circumstances, conditions, environment, and destiny. 8. What is the source of all evil? Destructive thinking. 9. What is the source of all good? Scientific, correct thinking. And 10. What is scientific thinking? A recognition of the creative nature of spiritual energy and our ability to control it. Now, one more quote that he ends here, and this one is by Bovey, and he quotes, the greatest events of an age are the best thoughts. It is the nature of thought to find its way into action, end quote. Now remember, the actions we take are taken by the nature of our thoughts. The nature of our action is determined by the nature of our thought. And that is the end of part 16. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you for watching. Remember, we are on this part every single day. We'll go over part 17 next Sunday, but before that, twice a day. Morning upon awakening we read, and night before we go to bed we read part 16. So essentially we go over the part 14 times in 1 week. That's a lot of times, but it is necessary because remember, these are lessons, and it is important to gain every single part that is in here, because we don't want to be left behind, do we? Neither you nor I. So that being said, let's keep growing together, and remember our daily affirmations that we are the light of the world, you and me, and together we can make a difference. But it starts now. And with that being said, I'll see you on the other side of the galaxy.